everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Ringside Rundown podcast. My name is Erik Vasquez, and joining me on the line is my podcasting partner in crime. Yes, that rhymes. She is the dynamite kid to this British Bulldog concoction of podcasting tag team. She's the best tag team partner in all of wrestling podcasting. She is Shay Hickson. Shay, what's going on, my friend?
What is going on this? Once again, I feel like we say it every week. Hot Tuesday night. Like
Yeah.
I had to turn my air conditioning up because it literally would keep going on every like 5 minutes. So I'm like, I need to save my electric bill a little bit. But besides that, I can't complain. How about
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, it's hot. My brother said he stepped outside and he saw a plastic bag melt on the ground. I was like, it
Yeah,
can't be that hot. He's like, it's hot.
sounds
So
about it. Sounds about right.
yeah. I've been staying inside, just just relaxing, enjoying the summer.
Yeah, yeah, might as well. I'm still counting down the days till fall, but
Yeah. We're
soon
almost
enough.
there. We're almost there.
So slowly but surely.
Yes. But if you're a new listener to the podcast, thank you so much for joining us. This is a pro wrestling podcast where Shay and I answer questions sent in to us by our loyal listeners wanting to know what's been going on in the world of WWE, what's been going on in the world of AEW, and the like. So that's what we do here. We talk about what's going on in wrestling, so we might as well get right into it. I think this episode is going to be a nice kind of bite-sized episode, not too long, easily digestible for those that are listening.
Yeah, judging by the fact we have 12 questions today, I think it's going to be a pretty easy episode. It's
Yes.
going to be good for everyone involved. We got a lot of different questions, so let's get right into it.
All right.
All right, so we're going to start off with moms, which, as everybody that listens to the show knows, she loves Damien, obviously.
Yes.
She was not too thrilled by Gunther going at him the way he did on Raw.
Ooh.
Did not like street trash. She said Damien was not pleased by that comment. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody would be pleased if they got called street trash, but yeah, that was a good promo too. That's one of those where I think I'm glad people are giving Damien credit because anybody else that could have just folded. That Gunther could have just destroyed him and he could not have come back any way, shape, or form. And Damien held his own. And it makes me even more excited for that match on SummerSlam because it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And anybody who thinks that Gunther's just going to run over Damien is fooling themselves because he beat Braun Strowman clean, so why can't he do that to Gunther?
Yeah. It was a really good promo, and it was crazy because when I was watching it and he did the whole street trash thing, I kind of like took offense, like because
Yeah.
if you're a longtime listener to the show, like I identify a lot with Damian Priest being both from the Bronx and being Yankee fans and being Puerto Rican and being passionate about professional wrestling. Those are things we have in common. So like when Gunther called him street trash, I was like, whoa, that's a
Hmm.
little harsh.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where later on you start to realize that that's part of Gunther's game plan. He's
Hmm.
he's very much very cerebral, kind of like Swerve, where
Yeah.
he'll go for the low blow to get inside your head and to make you question yourself, you
Hmm.
know? So if he has to call you street trash and say you're poor and all this stuff and it was your choice to be poor. That was the
Yeah.
craziest part. It was like you chose to be poor, and I'm like, who chooses to be poor? Like I didn't choose to be poor. It just that's the
No.
way it is. And it's just like that's his way of getting inside of Damian Priest's head, making him question if he has the fortitude to be able to stand up to Gunther and defend his title.
And I think he can. I think it might do the opposite effect. It might motivate Damien even more. And I think it did its job of getting people behind Damien. Because, like you
Hmm.
said, a lot of people see themselves in Damien. So when Gunther said that, they're all like, wait a minute here. Like, don't start with this elitist, like, bullshit.
Yeah.
And Gunther plays into it perfectly because his thing pretty much his entire WWE run was that the match sacred, wrestling is this like professional like by the rules kind of sport, and people who don't follow those rules are just degenerates, and Damien would look like somebody that would fit that bill. So it went perfectly. Like I said, that was a very good promo. It makes me even more excited for their match at SummerSlam, and it's going to be interesting to see if they keep talking to each other, because I would like to see some more of it.
Yeah, definitely. And on top of that, um, it kind of starts to eliminate the question of did Damian Priest do anything substantial as world heavyweight champion?
Yeah,
It's starting to click,
yeah,
and he's starting to become way more popular. You see when he comes out to the crowd, they're kind of they're not going crazy for him, but they're cheering in a way. It's like you
yeah.
don't hear any boos, and he just looks cool as a champion. So it's starting to turn the corner. Problem is that we're so close to SummerSlam, and all bets are on Gunther, fulfilling prophecy as King of the Ring and becoming world heavyweight champion. It feels like, damn, you wish that this popularity surge would have happened a lot sooner, and maybe they could have pivoted.
Or maybe this won't be the only time they face each other. Maybe
Maybe.
maybe somehow Damien holds on to the title and Gunther inevitably will beat him, but maybe it doesn't need to be right away. Maybe there's more of a story to be had than just, all right, we talked a couple times, we wrestled, I beat you. It's like there could be more to the story than just what we're seeing now, I think anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point.
I also am just trying to keep people happy that we don't want Damien to lose yet, but I mean there is a good chance that he doesn't.
Yeah.
Which kind of goes into the goes into the next match, which Mom asked about. Do we think Dominic's going to cost Rhea the title at SummerSlam?
Very interesting, because
Mm,
I kind of that theory kind of tickled my brain a little
hmm.
bit, and then I started seeing a small smattering of people online have the same sort of idea, like, could it possibly be, like,
Yeah.
the way I see it happening, if it does happen, is Dom costs Rhea the title at SummerSlam. He takes offense to maybe not Rhea not subscribing to the idea that she is his the way he wants to.
Yeah. The
So
possessiveness.
so he'd
Yeah.
rather be with someone that is more submissive to him. Um, and then it can also segue into this sort of rom-com idea between Jey Uso and Rhea
Oh
Ripley
God.
that I find,
Jay.
yeah, I find
Oh.
very, very interesting, how they kind of revisited that idea that Jay has a thing for Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, I feel like they could do it that way, or they could still have him cost her the title, but not in a nefarious kind of way, just like a bumbling idiot kind of way that he kind of cost Becky the title.
Mm.
Because that could be even more tension. I mean, as if there isn't enough tension in the Judgment Day, but I don't know about you, but I have a feeling she may be toying with him a little bit because there's no way she forgave him that easy.
Yeah, that's
There's
the
no
same.
way.
Yeah, that's the same thing I said. Is like she kind of that just kind of came out of nowhere. Like, is Dom in the clear? Is he out of the doghouse? Because
Yeah.
the things that were happening, even because again, it's Tuesday night. This episode is going to be dropping on Wednesday. But last night on Raw, like, they had another incident where they kind of get put in this position physically
Yeah.
that they shouldn't be. Like, they need to stop hanging out with each other, because
Yeah.
somehow it
Something
ends up,
happened.
yeah, it ends up with Liv on top of Dom, exactly the way you're thinking as I said it.
Mhm.
That this is like the third or fourth time that it's happening, and it's crazy.
I'm wondering if maybe like Rhea's doing that because she knows I need to at least placate him until I beat her for the title at SummerSlam, and if he's not supposedly focused on me getting the title back, then this is just going to be a waste of my time maybe. Um
Mm.
it's just I this is going to hurt, and I know that we're going to do our predictions in a couple of weeks anyway. Am I glad that Rhea's coming back? Absolutely. Like, of course I am. Am I glad that we get to see her first match back live at SummerSlam. Yes, absolutely. I screamed when they like made the like match announcement. But I don't see Liv not. I don't see Liv walking out of Cleveland without that title, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just seems like right now
You got to build the
her
story.
yeah, build and her story is pretty interesting because it can go from Rhea. They set up something nice with Zelina at one part, but then she has the
Mm.
issue
Yeah.
with Shayna that happened on Monday.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts, but like you're right, there is stuff. There's meat on the bone for Liv to have a substantial, meaningful title reign.
Well, in
I
my thing, and the thing is too, is that especially this match, but also kind of SummerSlam so far as a whole, for the most part, we don't know what the hell's going to happen with this match, especially because you could easily see Rhea coming back and winning. You could
Mhm.
see Liv winning by nefarious means. You could see Dominic turning on Liv. You can see Dominic turning on Rhea. And it's just funny that he does not see that Liv was kind of lying through her teeth the whole time on that promo because she's like, oh, well, at first I thought it was just kind of like a game, but no, I actually really started to fall for him. It's like, did you see how that video of her like laughing backstage after
Right.
Rhea came back? She knows what she's doing. She's just manipulating the guy. So it's like, what way are they gonna go? And I just feel like there better be a good explanation for why Rhea supposedly took him back so quickly
Right.
because I feel like if she comes out and is like, "Yeah, I was just using you because I needed my title back," that's kind of shitty. That's not good guy esque. But it's also would make her look really stupid if within literally a whole night just erase 3 months of wrongs. So there's got to be more to this. Luckily, we have a couple more weeks to see how it plays out. But to answer mom's actual question, I don't know if he will, but I wouldn't be surprised one way
Yeah.
or another.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that the and this plays into the idea of how dramatic and interesting this story is. It's a
Yeah.
story that people are trying to paint negatively because it has
Yeah.
some sort of sexual undertone to it. And yes, but it's that's just a small puzzle piece in the grand picture of it
Yeah.
all. Basically that Liv is using whatever power she has both mentally and physically to manipulate a weak-minded person in Dominic Mysterio, so weak in fact that he was once a puppet, just like he is to Liv. He was a
Yeah.
puppet to Rhea, you know,
Hmm.
in the same exact fashion. So in a sense, you're like, can Rhea really be mad because it's just like she got beat by her own game, and this
Yeah.
plays into the story of how interesting and multi-layered this story is it's not one of those Vince McMahon-esque love triangles that insult your
No.
intelligence, and it's like I can't let people know that I'm watching this because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
If people were to see the Dom Liv Rhea situation, not even wrestling fans, if they were just to see the drama, the storyline, they would get into it because it's sort of relatable. These things
Yeah.
do happen, you
Yeah.
know.
All the
People,
time.
yeah, people do use their abilities, their the mental games and their physical prowess to take advantage of people. It happens. It's a real thing, you know. And these sort of love triangles are real life. So it's like
Hmm.
it's not insulting our intelligence.
No.
We don't feel stupid for watching it. We feel like we're detectives in a way. You know,
Yeah.
we're
It's like, what's gonna happen next?
exactly. We're sitting there trying to put the puzzle pieces together before the next thing happens. So,
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if you saw the same two things on Twitter that if you notice in the Judgment Day's like layer, JD and Finn were playing 2K24 and they were playing Liv versus Rhea. Who are they playing as? Not
oh
Rhea.
no,
No. And then also why and the thing is, of course, people right off the bat would think this is a silly question, but it was like, well, why did Dominic give it Rhea black roses? Of course, immediately people are just gonna be like, well, why wouldn't it? It's Rhea. That's like her aesthetic. It'd be black, whatever.
right.
Yeah, but what do black roses symbolize?
Don't they
The end
symbolize, yeah, like the end, like death, right?
the end of a relationship or something meaningful,
Oh,
so maybe he knows what he's doing, but he could also be stupid and not know. Like, that's literally the thing, like, you don't know. Is he
right.
playing dumb? Is he actually dumb? Like, you don't know, and that's why we, like you say, it doesn't insult your intelligence, it makes you wanna keep watching because 'cause you're like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of, we went from, wow, the bloodline is a great storyline and it's the really the only storyline driving the popularity of WWE, to now we have like four or five different stories in the
Mhm.
WWE, and this is just one of those that are like, man, you really feel like a detective doing some detective work.
Exactly, it's fun to watch wrestling again, who would have thought?
Yeah, right.
So one more SummerSlam question. Drew just can't help himself. Do we think he wins at SummerSlam?
Um,
It's so tough because I feel like at some point he's gonna have to,
right.
because he can't keep getting screwed over, even outside of a match, technically. So I mean, at law of averages, at some point he's gonna win. But if it's gonna be SummerSlam, I don't know. I don't know if they drag this all the way to WrestleMania next year. I think that might be a little too long, but
Right.
I would think. Well, I mean, everyone keeps saying they should do the blow off at Bad Blood in a steel cage because that's, what that was designed for. So,
Yeah, but Punk himself said he's like I really don't want to do any hardcore style matches, steel cage, hell in a cell
yeah.
sort of stuff. And it makes sense. I mean, this guy, we have to be careful with him because he
Mhm.
tends to get injured quite often, quite easily. So,
Yeah, but the worst part is that with this feud, you're gonna have to do something extreme. Like, you can't just
right,
have like, after all this shit, you can't have just a regular match. It's
right.
gotta be
I
something.
Yeah, I do think that Drew might come away with the victory at SummerSlam if the match happens, because again, like we said last week, this match doesn't need a title. It doesn't need anything
No.
except the beef between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. That is enough to make you want to actually buy a ticket to
Hmm.
see this match. But in the end, it's just a win or a loss, So in the end,
Yeah.
it's not really consequential if CM Punk loses the match. It actually makes more sense if Drew wins the match. It just seems right because, like you said, he's kind of been on a losing streak because he's been he's been messed with. He's been screwed
Yeah.
with constantly. His problem is like last night on Raw. All he had to do was say I'm sorry to
Hmm.
those referees. we There's been times where we've had to say sorry and we didn't mean it. We just
Yeah.
said it to get the drama done and over with. If all he had to do was say I'm sorry, even if he didn't mean it, if he said it, the
Hmm.
suspension would have been lifted. CM Punk probably gets medically cleared and the match happens. But why does he have to be such a dickhead and not apologize, even if he doesn't mean it?
So he
You
can't get
know,
out of his own way.
exactly. So in the end, I don't feel bad for this guy. You know,
No, no, and the thing is too is that even regardless of who wins at SummerSlam, literally the next night on Raw, or on two nights, I forgot it's on a Saturday, but the next Raw, they could, one of the other one who loses could easily just come out and say, "I'm not done with you yet." Like, it's not an end all be all end to this feud. It's
right?
probably just the beginning. So it's like they could easily just be like, "No, screw that. I know I'm that wasn't enough. I want more. I just want to kick your ass in however way possible
Hmm.
and just keep going." But yeah, I feel like the problem is, like you said, is if until Drew can get out of his own way, he's not going to get anything. He's not going to be able to accomplish anything because he can't just swallow his pride and he
Hmm.
just can't do the things he needs to do to get the thing he wants. Punk. That's the thing. And he's
Right,
just become so enamored and just so obsessed with it that the obvious is just eluding him right now. It's like, you want the match. All you had to do was just say you're sorry, but you still couldn't bring yourself to do that because
right,
you're just so overcome with emotion and rage. So it's like, God help people when he actually learns how to keep the emotions in check because he's done it before. He can do it again. But yeah, I feel like he's got to have to win at SummerSlam just for just for his sake, because I don't think he could. He might end up killing somebody if he loses at SummerSlam. That's the only thing like worse that he could do.
Yeah, but again, it's just it baffles my mind that a grown man, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
like we've all been in a situation where somebody who has some sort of authority over us has come to us and say, "Hey, some situation happened. You need to apologize." And a lot of times we don't mean the apology. We just say it to get it over with. You know,
Yeah,
so
it's like
like
just as long as we have to move on from this, I don't want to keep dealing with it. So fine, I guess. But
yeah, it just baffles my mind that he couldn't come to say I'm sorry to these two insignificant referees. And then to
can't
the
do it.
point of what happens after this SummerSlam match,
Hmm.
CM Punk could slide into a situation with Seth Rollins, and that becomes the next money feud people care about.
Yeah.
Because that already has wheels behind it already. There's
Hmm.
already a natural beef, and people want to see that match. So again,
Yeah.
if CM Punk loses, fine. He's still in another money marquee match with Seth freaking Rollins whenever that happens. What happens with Drew? He finally gets his win over CM Punk. Big whoop. He's not world heavyweight champion. If he wants to, he's still going to have to go through Damian Priest or Gunther. So it's like, who's really winning? Again, all he had to do, it's a pattern with Drew. It's
Yeah.
it's a pattern. All he had to do WrestleMania is, give the title to his wife, leave. He'd probably still be world heavyweight champion. If he
Hmm.
would have chosen a better time to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase, he
Instead of telegraphing it.
exactly. He probably would be world heavyweight champion. If he
Hmm.
would have said sorry to these referees, he would have had his suspension lifted. The match would have happened. Now he's got to sit at home. CM Punk is probably going to show up. And you know what I would do if I was CM Punk? I'd
What?
give those two referees like a box of muffins or whatever,
Yeah.
some sort of pastry that CM Punk likes, just to rub it in. And it's so anti CM Punk to be the nice guy, to look out for the
Yeah.
referees. Like it sticks to Drew McIntyre even more. So he's gonna say some stuff
Hmm.
on the ball.
Once again, cockiness begets stupidity.
Yes,
And he
well
is the
said.
living embodiment of that right now, unfortunately. And maybe he'll learn, maybe he won't learn, but
Yeah.
clearly right now he's not learning.
What a sentence.
So, cockiness begets stupidity. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can get a couple every now and again. All right. So, mom thinks Ethan Page looks great. The gold suits him. I agree. I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
And just the way it happened was just
Mhm.
so like crazy. Like
Yeah.
I haven't seen something like that in a very long time, but yeah, it's just if anybody could be champion, it could be Ego, and I'm glad that he's finally gotten some recognition and his like time to shine because I think at least for me, I so desperately wanted him to get that in AEW, and for whatever reason, they just never like got there,
Yeah.
and it was frustrating. But I'm glad that it's like the star. It's almost like the stars kind of just have to align nowadays because back when it was just regular NXT, you got to ride the hot hand. And I mean, yeah, you're bringing in people from like the indies left and right and whatever, but it's just always been with NXT about timing.
Right.
Kind of like we've talked about 5,000 times before. The reason Aleister Black never got to main event a takeover was because at the same time, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa's feud was going on. So that was terrible timing.
Yeah.
Fast forward all the way to this, the timing couldn't have been perfect for him.
Yeah.
They needed just the right amount of like cockiness. They just needed that cocky like chicken shit heel that could take it off a Trick because I think they were starting to kind of realize, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago. They may have started to realize that Trick's been getting exposed a little bit lately.
Mm.
He's just not like the. I think it was the first match with Ego. People were not happy about that match, and we talked about it because Ego's great in the ring, but he's also not a ring general. I mean,
Hmm.
it's like the inside joke, the ring general. But if that's the case, the person across the ring from him needs to be a ring general, or at least someone that can call the match and go on and so forth. So when you have two people that aren't proficient in calling the match as you're wrestling it, it's not going to look great. And the problem was, is I think they kind of, which they really didn't have much of a choice. You had to put it on the hot hand, which was Trick at the time. He's still popular, but I feel like you need to give him a little more time to like progress in the ring without the stress of, oh, I don't know, the biggest like title on the brand. Um, Hopefully that doesn't repeat itself with Ego, but at least now he has like we always say, the heel as the champion is the better draw because someone's got to chase him.
Right, right. Yeah, it makes for a better story. Um,
Exactly. Especially somebody like Ego who can be a cocky, like again, a chicken shit. You just want to punch him in the face kind of heel.
yeah, he has a
Him
very
holding the gold, like come on.
yeah, he has a very punchable face.
Yes.
A very
Yes, exactly.
punchable face, especially when he does that smile and point thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like God. I don't. He reminds me of the dude in high school that just like just wouldn't shut the fuck up and
Yeah.
constantly had to brag about something. You
Yeah.
know, like they couldn't just shut up. Like to me, it all goes back to the day he was let go from AEW. I was like, man, he would kill it in like NXT. I didn't
Quite
know he was
often.
just gonna show up like right then and there. And then
Hmm.
on top of that, he wins the NXT championship 40 days into his,
Yeah.
employment of the company. And that is just so crazy because
Hmm.
it almost feel, and I don't want to be that guy, but it almost feels like NXT in particular and Shawn Michaels and everybody there that runs that ship was like, we can literally take their scraps from
Hmm.
over there and
Yeah.
turn them into gold. We
Yeah.
literally take their coal and turn it into diamonds.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
and it baffles my mind because Ethan Page is the NXT champion. Sean Spears is a little bit more interesting
Hmm.
now than he was in AEW, and then Alexis King.
Yeah.
I don't really care for the guy, but you got to admit he's a little bit more interesting now
Yeah.
than he was before. But
Better
again,
presentation at least.
exactly, it's just they know what they're doing in
Yeah.
terms of, as you said, presentation, and it just like you said with Ego being the heel and everything, he just has that vibe, like he's ready to be in that spot to be a champion of a brand. He is that good. He can carry a feud. He can piss people off. He
Hmm.
can make you want to cheer for the other guy to kick his ass. And that's
Yeah.
that's the goal. That's his job. So it just, again, 40 days into your debut of the company, you're already the NXT champion. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And how do you not, from the other side, look at that and go, what the hell did we miss? We can't, not
Yeah.
necessarily saying with him, but making
In
sure
general.
yeah, it doesn't happen again. You don't want it to happen again. You don't want to
Yeah.
develop a pattern.
It's literally just like you look at the people that have come back from AEW over to like WWE NXT, and for some of them, it's just these small little adjustments where you just look at it and go, why couldn't AEW have done this?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that difficult. Like, it's really not that difficult. I mean, essentially, with Ethan Page, all they just had to do was give him some TV time. That's it. That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
Like, that was fucking it. Like, it's not like, well, we got to completely overhaul his character and we got to, like, give him new, like, gear and everything. No, it's like, he's the same guy in AEW, same talker. You just put him in a ring longer than they did in AEW, and look what happened.
Right. And the thing is, he would have matched up so well with other guys in AEW. This is
Yeah.
not a situation where, like there's nothing they could have done in AEW. He could have had great matches
He had a good
at
match with MJF.
yeah,
Like,
and like he was the baby face in that, you
yeah, and
know?
people thought that was a great match and were like, okay, maybe finally they're like realizing what they got here. And then it was just like nothing. I'm like, okay, that's great, I guess.
Right, but he could have been having great matches now with Swerve, Osprey,
Yeah,
Okada, eh,
Kesha.
yeah, Takeshita. Like they could have put him in the. He would have been a great fit for the Don Callis family. Now that
Yeah.
it seems like I think I read that Trent Beretta is going to be out with injury for a while. You know,
Yeah, which is like shit luck on that. Like, poor guy. Damn.
yeah, yeah. So like, there's so much he could have done in
Hmm.
AEW. So it's like that's the baffling part. We're not looking at it as oh AEW is bad. It's just like there's actually things that they could have done in AEW that would have been great, and they just didn't do
Yeah.
it. And then he just shows up for the competition, and within 40 days, he's NXT champion. That's just baffling.
And it very rarely ever happens. You can probably name maybe a couple people on one hand who've done something like that. So,
They had mentioned before that he had broken the record that Kevin Owens once held, because that I do remember. Kevin
mhm.
Owens comes in, has the NXT Takeover match, wins against CJ Parker, turns on Sami Zayn, and right then and there, him and Sami Zayn are in an NXT Championship feud.
Yeah, it's like I mean, like on the women's side, Shayna came in and took her two takeovers to get the title. Like
Mm-hmm.
that kind of shit just doesn't happen every day,
Yeah,
and it's just but it's funny that you mentioned it earlier because it's a good segue into the next question where it's like you feel bad because sometimes it feels like all we do is dog on AEW, but they've got some pretty good stuff going on right now, and
mm-hmm.
kind of leans into Mom's last question, which is what does AEW have to do to bolster the ratings? I feel like they just need to start consistently having these compelling storylines like they're having right now.
Right.
Like like fucking Mariah, like oh my god, that was just I'm just like looking over Mike's questions real quick to think if he even said anything cuz I'm just like we need to talk
Yeah.
about that because oh my god. Okay, I think he has a little bit of a question, but we can go into it now. It was just like I'm like, okay, so Mariah's got to win it,
Mm.
and I was a little upset that Stat got involved because they got me for a minute. I'm just like, are they really gonna have this happen just so Mariah's win's tainted? And it didn't, luckily. But so I'm like, oh, thank God, we all got what we wanted. She goes up there as soon as she hits her with that belt. I literally out loud was like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And I'm just like sitting there in shock, just
Yeah.
pure just shock because I think we had even talked about it before. We were expecting it to go the other way. Maybe
Yeah.
not that night, but we were expecting as we were building up to Wembley, Tony was just going to start to realize that, oh, hey, maybe I should really be worried about Mariah and oh well, you're not really me though, so you're not gonna actually beat me, right? You can't actually think that you're gonna beat me.
Right. And not only that, but they've done such a great job with the angle and the pairing of Tony and Mariah that we
Mm.
kind of forgot that idea that there could have been some underlying tension
Yeah,
right.
the long term booking. We talked about it. That promo, because I think I sent it to you. The promo back in March, I think it said it was
Yeah.
when Tony was just looking at Mariah and she's like, "This has been your plan all along, hasn't it? To come in and like steal my spotlight and whatever." And poor Mariah looked like she was about to shit herself. And then Tony's like, "Oh, that's such a great idea. I would have never thought of that." And it's just like she should have known this whole time. She should have known 4 months later and it actually happens. And just that it's hard to watch at the end.
Okay.
Not even just because of the blood, just like Tony actually like crying. I'm like, oh, this is really uncomfortable, which is like what you want. This is good. But it pretty much goes back to what I've said time and time again. Mariah May is no understudy, and she knows it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sets her up to be big deal because at the end of it, like I went from we say it every week. We can't believe that Mariah May is a real person because she looks like someone that was
Mhm.
created in the lab. Like she's
Yeah.
literally the
Yep.
perfect specimen. Now after this situation, she scares the shit out of me. Like
Yeah. I'm like, I still love her though. Like I said, I'm not mad. I'm
I,
disappointed. I'm
I'm
mad.
I'm
Not mad.
terrified because the way she beat on Tony Storm's skull with that
With that
shoe,
shoe.
she beat the hell out of that girl. Like,
Like
it
that callback though.
yeah.
How many times did Tony say, watch for the shoe? And what was the one thing that took her out was the shoe.
Was the shoe. It just I
Ugh,
I mean you saw my reaction in real time
yeah.
because like
Yes.
I didn't there was no inkling in my brain that Mariah was going to turn on Tony. You
No.
know, we talked about possibly before because it had the whole idea of the mentor and the protege, and usually sometimes that happens, there becomes a power struggle, but they've stretched this out so long that that idea kind of leaves your mind. You're like, well,
Hmm.
they're a pairing, they're together.
Yeah.
We saw them overcome the whole Mina Shirakawa situation.
Their mother and daughter,
Yeah,
like,
it was just like, and so when this happened,
ugh,
it was just like,
broke my heart.
wow. It did, but it was so smart because
Yeah.
it was one of those things where you cannot deny the popularity of timeless Tony Storm. She literally, with this idea, this character, she struck gold.
Oh
She
yeah.
struck gold, especially this day and age, 2024. It's very hard to come up with an original idea, an original character that just works, you know, that
Yeah.
you could just morph into and put your all in. And now she'll be able to do that as a baby face, as someone that the crowd can cheer. They'll have sympathy for her, but she'll be
Oh
one of those
yes.
people that like this situation, she's heartbroken, but she's gonna turn that heartbreak into vengeance, and
Yeah.
she's gonna want to go after Mariah. You know, she's
Yeah.
gonna want to tear her apart. We've seen what a motivated timeless Tony Storm
Mhm.
sounds like. She sounds like an absolute genius
Yes.
who can cut the best promos I've ever seen ever. Could you imagine now when she has
Oh
revenge
god.
on her mind, the stuff that's going to come out of her mouth?
I
Like,
cannot wait.
you remember she just had a throwaway line where she was like, you know, you talk about hell, I sleep with my demons every night.
Yeah.
Like, and that was just a throwaway line. Imagine now that she's had her
Hmm.
heart broken, you
Yeah.
know, oh, it's gonna be, this is gonna be some of her best work easily.
I cannot wait for this. I do have to say though, and I don't know if you'll share this sentiment, but I was kind of talking about it with I think it was with mom a little bit ago. I was kind of rewatching it and I said, what I didn't like, and it had nothing to actually do with Mariah or Tony or Luther. It had to do with the announce team. I hated that immediately they're just like, "Oh my god, was she planning this whole time?"
Yeah.
It's like, guys, if
Let,
you would have just shut the fuck up, she's literally, and I guarantee you, she's literally gonna come out and say that
mhm.
tomorrow on Dynamite. Like, yeah, she probably was thinking about it this whole time, but don't telegraph it before she
Right.
can explain her actions. People should have had the last week or so to wonder what happened. Oh, was this just a spur of the moment thing? Did the like fame get to her head? Has she been planning this whole thing? I don't know why they had to go out and just be like, "Oh my god, was she like planning this whole time?" It's like,
Right.
guys, you don't need to telegraph it. Just let it be.
Right. And the thing is, if you let it be and you let the audience come to their own conclusions, they're
Yeah.
going to say, well, they didn't answer the question, so I have to tune in next week to get the answer to that question.
Yeah.
You know,
Because it makes too much sense now that it's, oh well, she's been planning this whole time. It's like, yeah, no shit, she probably has.
right.
But
Or like, you know, you could have left it to what moment was it that it clicked for Mariah? Maybe she
yeah,
wasn't planning it.
why would she do this?
Right. Maybe she wasn't planning it the entire time. Maybe she did really have this love and admiration for Tony Storm that she wanted to emulate her because she looked up to her. But there was
Yeah.
a moment in that partnership where something clicked, and it clicked in the
Yeah.
wrong way for Mariah. So what was that point? Again,
Yeah.
it's letting the audience come to that conclusion because the more questions means we have to tune in to watch what's going to happen. That goes back to the question of how do you bolster the ratings? You know, the rating situation,
Eh.
you and I can't sit here and say, no matter how much Dave Meltzer or whatever Twitter account talks about it, I personally will never understand how the ratings work. Um,
Yeah, me too. It's too
yeah,
much numbers.
yeah, but the thing is, like, we also have to take into account that this day and age, a lot of people don't use cable anymore. You know,
Yeah.
I use a streaming service. I use Hulu, which
Hmm.
is not very great. But
No, no, it doesn't sound like it.
yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people are in that situation where they use YouTube TV, they use Hulu Sling or something like that.
Hmm.
um so, and those things don't count towards the ratings. Like they don't get Nielsen ratings, which is what everybody like Meltzer relies on to make the reports.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to say, you know, oh, only 1 million people tuned into the show, 2 million people. I will say that the idea that a collision is going to beat out a WWE
No.
PLE at the same time is preposterous at this point.
Yeah.
What can AEW do? The biggest
Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest problem for me, and we've said it before on the show, is that if you go a week or two and you don't watch a collision or a rampage,
Hmm.
you don't miss much.
Yeah.
You really don't. I skipped out on collision this week because I was kind of burnt out and I didn't feel like streaming, so I skipped out. But I got the gist of it by just watching the clips on Twitter.
Yeah.
There's nothing to make me say I gotta tune into the show. The
Yeah.
Mariah May Tony Storm situation is a beautiful storytelling situation because again, there's multiple layers to it, and still, even with the commentary ruining a couple bits, it still leaves us as an audience to come up with our own scenarios and reasons why, and that makes us want to tune in and see what's going to happen. That's a reason why I'm going to tune into Dynamite, because I want to know why Mariah May did this. But again,
Yeah.
we could apply this to you know, any sort of situation that Swerve is in as a champion. The Will
Hmm.
Ospreay situation was great because it was real life. Swerve went low and started talking about Ospreay's family situation. That made it sort of a real life beef. Every single thing, and I don't want to make this a WWE versus AEW thing, but every single thing on WWE programming has a purpose.
Yeah.
You know, there is
Hmm.
not one thing on that show that is just a throwaway, doesn't fit in with a situation that's going on in the show. Even when they bring in new people or people that we don't see often, like Katana Chance and Caden Carter and Lyra Valkyria now.
Yeah.
That situation is a little bit interesting because you know they had a great showing on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
Now we have the Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, Sonya Deville situation. Interesting.
Hmm.
The
Damage control.
Damage Control, the Wyatt Six, Chad Gable. Interesting. Judgment Day, Liv Morgan situation. Interesting.
Hmm.
CM Punk, Drew. I can go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
With
Bloodline.
Yeah, with AEW, it's like one or two, and
That's
then
it.
that's supposed to carry Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. That is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
We need about 3 or 4 or 5 multi-layered stories, not on the grandest scale like a bloodline situation, but something that the audience can go, this is interesting. Let me start putting the pieces together. Once you start getting people's minds working, they're gonna want to watch and tune in.
Yeah. And I have to mention this because if not, I will forget and I'll be mad. So I like the point you made with Mariah, where I would prefer if she was like, I actually wasn't planning this all along. And then I just like, I really did care for Tony. She was like my mother. But
Mhm.
then, like you said, something just clicked with me that I'm just like, I need to go on my own. Because I feel like if she immediately just is like, yeah, no, I never actually cared for her. I was just faking it the whole time. I'm like, oh, well, the rest of it just feels kind of like bad now, not in like a terrible way, but just like, ugh,
Yeah,
it's just not gonna feel the same.
because you feel you as a viewer, your emotions have been played with.
Yeah, and it's just, I feel like I feel like it's a little more compelling if like your emotions get played a little more, where it's just like maybe it was like my original plan was to screw her over, but the more I was with her, the more I actually did genuinely start to care about her. But then again, something like clicked, something happened, I saw something or whatever, and then I realized what I was actually supposed to do. So I feel like it would be a little more I don't know. At least for me, it would be like heartbreaking where it's just like, well, you really did care, and then you still proceeded to stab her in the back. So,
Right, right, because again, it's sort of relatable in a way.
yes.
I feel like we've all been in a situation where we've put a lot of emotional stock into someone else, and we come to realize later on down the road that it was all for nothing. You
Yeah.
know, um that has happened plenty of times, and that's a relatable thing to people, and I think that's
Yeah.
why that would give you that sort of sentiment. It's great from a heel perspective,
Hmm.
but from a human perspective, you're like, damn, I really thought she was a ride or die for Tony,
Yeah.
and she ends up just screwing her over for whatever reason. So does that mean my radar for judging people and what their true intentions are, does that mean it's messed up? Like, am I a bad judge of character?
No.
So, and that's what happens, is like, that's what makes these situations relatable on a
Hmm.
human level. It doesn't insult our intelligence. It's something that we can sink our teeth into. These are the things that Tony Khan and the people in charge, they have to multiply and invest in. Is like, if we want to be, it's very hard nowadays to be the alternative, because
Yeah.
because the opposite of the alternative, what you're trying to be the alternative from, is actually pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
not that bad.
Yeah.
It'd be one thing if the other side was putting on a bad product that we're just forced into watching for force of habit, but the other side is doing some really cool shit. So in a sense, maybe it shouldn't be all about the alternative, and just be like, let's do it our way. you know
Yeah.
let's do it our way. We have the ability as All Elite Wrestling to put on some really, really good professional wrestling showcases that show professional wrestling as an art form. We have to build upon that and just inject a little bit of real life drama into every little thing that we put on TV. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be crazy, but just 10% of drama that a viewer can look at and be like, yeah, I've been in that situation. I want to see this guy kick this guy's ass, or this woman kick this woman's ass. Because at the end of the day, that is what wrestling is. You want to see
Yeah.
two people fight and see who's the better professional wrestler. That's what it is.
Yeah. Exactly. So at the end of the day, like you put it, AEW needs to give us several reasons to care, not just one, not just two, not even three. We need several reasons to tune into your programming every week.
Yeah, because again, like I said, I didn't even watch Collision this past Saturday, and I really don't feel like I missed anything. I
Yeah,
just I think
not a good sign.
I think MJF cut a promo, like, and
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
it's again, I can't do that with Raw. I can't do that with SmackDown, because I want to find out what's going on with the Judgment Day. I want to know what's going on
Yeah,
with the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes and all that stuff. And now NXT is hot. Like, after we're
yeah,
done doing the podcast, it's going to be late at night, but I got to tune into NXT, because now the Rascals are back together in NXT, and Joe Hendry's lighting it up for two different companies. Like, you
I
know,
know.
it's all madness.
It's chaos,
Yeah.
just chaos. Alrighty, so that was all of Mom's questions. So, Mom, thank you as always.
Thank you, Mom.
Let us go on to our last. It's so weird to say already. Last
Yeah.
six questions of the night come from Mike. Speaking of, if there's anyone who can match Trick Williams' charisma, it is Joe Hendry, of course. WWE would be foolish not to offer him a contract whenever his TNA contract expires. Speaking of Henry, with how hot he is, should he take the title from Moose and the six-man main event at Slammiversary?
I think so.
I
I
mean, at this rate, yeah, you'd be kind of silly not to.
Yeah, and I'm unfortunately, as I've stated before, I don't have access to TNA programming. But I'm thinking in a business sense, Joe Hendry's the hottest thing, not
Yeah,
only in your company, but now he's
everywhere.
becoming the hottest thing in two different national companies. You know, like
Yeah.
that's crazy. And like, last week was kind of my first exposure to Joe Hendry and what he can do in the ring. I like the way he moves.
Yeah.
He's got a very sort of kind of almost like a throwback brawler style to him. It's very deceiving when it in terms of his character,
Yeah.
the type of wrestler he is, but he meshed well with everybody in the ring. And again, that's the scary part. If you're TNA, is like this collaboration is cool. It's got people
Hmm.
talking. TNA is selling out shows, but does this mean like WWE? We're just basically a pseudo recruitment feeder system now to NXT.
Yeah.
You
Might
know,
might look like it.
yeah, and that's scary. If I was TNA, I'd be kind of like, not necessarily, because I don't have a problem with people like Tatum Paxley and Izzy Dame showing up. I would love it if
Yeah.
like somebody bigger like Natalia showed up, or
Yeah.
go crazy and have Bailey show up.
Yeah.
That
Oh
would be
God, could you
really
imagine?
that would set the wrestling world on fire, and it'd be a show of goodwill because again, you look at it and you're like, well, when Joe Hendry's contract is up, is he going to be WWE NXT bound? What about Jordan Grace? I mean, Jordan Grace has
Hmm.
basically been auditioning
Yeah.
for WWE if she wants to have a job after TNA contract is up, and by all accounts, she's been hitting it out of the park. So it's like you can be a little bit nervous if you're TNA, but again, in terms of the question, WWE's got to pick him up, and if TNA
Hmm.
is smart, like if it seems like he's not going to renew his next contract offer, put the belt on him, milk it while it's hot, get all the
Yeah.
buzz you can, and just go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like it's only a matter. It's a matter of time that he goes to WWE at this rate.
Yeah, and Moose is not going to go anywhere. I think
No.
he's a TNA loyalist. He's already expressed that, which is pretty cool. So it's not like you take the belt off him and like you can't put it back on him down the line.
Yeah, exactly. That's at least put them in a good position. It's like a good as good of a position as it can be in
Mhm.
because yeah, it pretty much is just like yeah, NXT is pretty much reaping the benefits and TNA's kind of, but
Yeah,
not as much.
yeah, I mean, and I forgot to mention, Charlie Dempsey is showing up on TNA as well,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I think I got a weird feeling about Charlie Dempsey. Like he can be something. He's got something that
Hmm.
like for me as a viewer, I'm just tuned into for some reason. And he's got kind of like bad luck with this whole no quarter catch crew because it was run by Drew Gulak. We all saw how that situation went
Hmm.
down. Now
Yeah.
they had to get rid of Damon Kemp. His contract is not being renewed by
Yeah.
WWE. So like he's
Yikes.
constantly had the hurdles thrown at him with this no quarter catch crew deal, but he's been making it work. He's gotten to wrestle in Noah, and now he's going over to TNA, which is cool. But like I said,
It's
it'd
also
be
in Bloodsport too, I think.
yeah, Bloodsport too. Forgot about that. So like, but again, if they were to do something crazy, like have Bailey show up or have Naomi go back to TNA,
Yeah.
like a one night deal where she goes back
Yeah.
to TNA because she really rejuvenated her wrestling career in TNA.
Yeah.
So it's like
Send her
you
back.
yes, and or send Shayna, Zoe, and Sonya.
Oh, God. Send damage control. Like,
Yeah, you do something cool. I mean, again,
yeah.
no hate towards Tatum Paxley or Izzy Dame. I think they're great and they're going to be stars in their own right. But just like let's boost it up. Let's set the
Yeah.
people. Let's have them go crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think either way, I think the winner really here is Joe Hendry. It's just a matter of who's going to make him the winner.
We believe.
We believe. Mom begrudgingly believes now because I haven't given her a choice.
We kind of do that to her where like
Yeah.
we kind of prod her constantly for stuff and she ends up turning over
I
for
mean,
us.
technically, it was Jack. Jack was the one that brought it up initially on that one episode, and she's like, "What does that even mean?" I'm like, "Well, if you want to hear the song, I'll play you the
You're
song."
gonna hear the song and then you're never ever gonna not hear the song.
And then she got mad because that was the point. Because then she's like, "Now it's stuck in my head, and now I'll send her like different memes. Like I'll have like Like there was one where it was like a SpongeBob meme where like he burst through the door and it was Joe Hendry instead of whoever it was on the other side.
Oh,
Like
fantastic.
it's great. It's funny. It makes me laugh, but her not so much. But oh well. All right. So how awesome is it the two women's feuds are being talked about so much in wrestling right now? Obviously, Rhea coming back and Mariah May's shocking betrayal. Yeah, I love it. As a
Yeah,
women's wrestling fan, I fucking love it. This is great
yeah.
because it's like I have two different companies with two compelling stories that I want to watch every week because I want to know what happens. Like, I mean, what more can I ask for?
Yeah, I mean, it goes far beyond that, actually. You think about uh, Julia and Stephanie
Yeah,
Vecker coming into NXT. You know,
yeah,
they made a big deal about Stephanie signing with the WWE,
mhm,
obviously, with the situation,
yeah,
but they put her out there. And they're like, oh, we're on tour in Mexico, and you kind of made your
yeah.
name
Show
in
up.
Mexico. This is an easy setup. And then they
Mhm.
had her just wash Isla Dawn,
Poor
like,
Isla. I felt
yeah,
so bad.
yeah. But like, I mean, it's just, and then you look at the women in NXT, how they're able to find these women that are not even, they don't come from a pro wrestling world. It's just like,
Yeah,
hey, you look like you can be a star in this thing. It's gonna hurt physically a little bit, but you're gonna make a lot of money. You got a potential.
yeah.
And now we have, a Jada Parker. We have a Sol Ruka. When
Yes.
she gets to the main roster,
Insane.
it's gonna
It's gonna be insane.
it's a wrap. This girl is gonna be a star. It's just like she hits that soul snatcher move, and it's
Gets
just,
me every time.
but she's just so, like, the way she moves. And then like you look at like Lyra Valkyria,
Yeah.
I'm looking at her and I'm like, yo, she's honestly one of the best going right now. Like, she
Yeah.
moves like she has springs in her steps. She hits
Yes.
with intent. But then you go over to the other side, the Mariah May situation we talked
Hmm.
about. It's
Brit and
just
Mercedes.
Brit Mercedes. I mean, it's just like it's almost like we talked about needing evolution as an idea and as a pay-per-view. It's
Yeah.
like we felt, and I can't speak for women in particular, but it almost felt like we wanted that for the idea of representation, just to have a
Yeah.
physical idea of representation. And
Yeah.
now it's like you don't even really need that,
But
because
Bailey wants it though.
yeah, you want it, but it's like it went from almost like a need, like, like, we have to show people that we're all about the equality and giving fair, balanced chances to
Yeah.
everybody, regardless of gender or gender identity. But now it's just like women's wrestling is such an integral part of wrestling fabric as a whole, that the idea of representation is there. you
Yeah.
know the physical evolution thing is now, it's nice to have. Now
Yeah.
it's not like a necessity, or else we look bad. And
Hmm.
now it's just like we
Yeah.
should do this because it's cool. But again, there the like the I watch NXT and I look at it and go, man, not only how far women's wrestling has come, but what's the potential for the future is
Yeah.
insane, because WWE in particular keeps finding these gymnasts, these cheerleaders, these CrossFit girls, and it's just like they don't even they don't even know what wrestling is, and they just take to it like water, you know? And then you mix in with the vets like the Baileys, the Meechins, the Natalias. It's insane. It's insane. I love it.
Yeah. Same thing with the Mae Young Classic too. It'd be
Yeah,
great to have, but don't
yeah.
really need it anymore. I mean, I'd like to see it again, but
Right, yeah, but I mean, like, it'd be good to stack that with the Queen of the Ring tournament, and then you bring back the Evolution pay per view. Maybe do the Women's Intercontinental Championship, because we
yeah.
see that the NXT Women's North American Championship is working on NXT. So why wouldn't a Women's Intercontinental Championship work on the main roster?
Yeah. Exactly. This is just give us what we want, please. secondary titles. We want women's secondary titles.
Yeah, I think it'll work. It'll be great.
I think so. I mean, I give the workhorse title to Dakota immediately, or I will scream. But whatever. That's a discussion for another day. But all right, back to AEW. Do we think AEW is making a mistake by having MJF versus Ospreay and Swerve versus Okada on TV and not a pay per view? It reminds Mike of Bischoff giving Hogan versus Goldberg away on TV. Yes, and I see why. I can see why they're doing it, except it's very counterintuitive to what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
They want the ratings.
Yeah.
It's the 250th episode of Dynamite. Gotta pack it in as much as you can. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
However, and we've talked about this 5,000 times, I guess we're going to talk about it 5,001. The ratings will be there for that episode and that episode only. Because the problem is, you give us just hypothetically, we'll just say a 9 out of 10 on the like match card scale. You're not going to be able to continuously do that every single week because then once you do that, your pay-per-views mean shit because okay, well, I don't really care that we could get this match because we've gotten something like it 4 weeks in a row on Dynamite or Rampage or Collision. So, yeah, I think it's a mistake because I get that they have to do it for like anniversary purposes, but it's not even just this episode. They do this way too often where you see a match advertised for next week on Collision or Rampage or Dynamite, and how many times have we said, "Oh, that's a really good match. Why is it on TV?"
Right.
Like you can I get that you need the ratings, but you can't force it because again, you keep throwing all of this onto free television that you don't have to pay pay-per-view rate for. Why would people give a shit about your pay-per-views then? You're giving it to them for free.
Yeah. The way I'm looking at it is I know it probably has to do with they're trying to negotiate the new TV rights deal.
Yeah.
So I think that's why that's been playing a part as well as why they're putting those matches on TV. Obviously, as a consumer, I'm not mad that they're giving it away for free.
No.
I see why they're doing it. It's part what you were saying, and it's part the TV rights deal that they're trying to negotiate. But it all kind of just goes back to this is why we don't need 15 match pay-per-view cards. You know?
No, because half the time those cards should be on a Dynamite.
Right, exactly. So it's just like if we get the free match on TV, like we're gonna get a good match on the pay-per-view that's gonna be inconsequential. Like it sounds stupid to be like, oh well, we're accustomed to seeing good matches, we know good matches are gonna happen, but it's like they're good matches, but they don't mean anything after a while. Like there's no purpose aside from it's a good match. And this is why Tony Khan gets the criticism of being a matchmaker and not a booker. He's great at putting dream matches together and matches people want to see, but a booker is a man that'll put those matches together and give you a reason to buy a ticket, besides the fact that it's a good match. Because again, if you see a Will Ospreay match on Dynamite and it's a banger, you're guaranteed to see another Will Ospreay match that's going to be a banger on TV the next 2 weeks. So it's like, if I miss it, I miss it. If I catch it on DVR when I'm bored, so be it. You know, it's just like, I guess it's that sort of supply and demand sort of deal. Like you maybe you're giving away too much of your product.
Yeah, save it for the pay-per-views if you can, but it's like you said, it's a good point too with the TV ratings. They need to do this, but the problem is they've done this way too often where it's like, all right, we get it, like stop putting us to sleep on your pay-per-views because you have so many of them. And like we said, out of the 15, half of them, 9 times out of 10, were like, okay, why was this on a Dynamite and not this match? Like they got the priorities mixed around sometimes where it's like you get Dynamite quality matches on pay-per-views and you get pay-per-view quality matches on Dynamite. So it's like, maybe stop doing that.
Right. Yeah,
consistently.
And it's just like, we don't need 15 matches with 6 good ones and the rest are fillers. Like it just figure it out, buddy. Like
literally, like
Figure it out.
Just get your shit together, please. Um, Anyway, so what did we kind of talked about this earlier. What did we think of the angle Gunther took with being on the street as a choice and calling Priest street trash? He thinks Damian firing back about Gunther's privilege was a nice new way to come back at each competitor. Yeah, they definitely, like I said, it could have that could have been completely one-sided on Gunther's part. Like
Right.
that could have been anybody else could have just been, oh, this is like, I don't know how to come back from this because he kind of just roasted me too much. No, Damien held his own. Like we
Right.
said earlier, he held his own. It's definitely, it definitely gets a lot more people cheering for him because they're not going to be too thrilled about cheering for the guy that essentially called them street trash. So
Right.
it did its job. It did exactly what they wanted it to do, I think.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that the everything is sort of clicking for Damien in the sense that he can be more natural now. I feel like
Yes.
he's getting comfortable being in that spotlight, and he realizes this is the thing I always try to remind people whenever they're in situations where they feel like they don't belong or they're undeserving. If you're in a situation like Damian Priest, for an example, you have to look at it in the sense of they wouldn't put me in this position if they didn't think I can get the job done. You know,
Yes.
they
Yep.
they put I'm here for a reason, and it feels like Damian Priest is starting to understand that he's there for a reason. I feel like he's put a lot of pressure on himself as
Hmm.
champion. So you see when things happen like the rope situation at Clash at the Castle and how
Yeah.
he put so much burden and weight and Triple H is like shit happens, and then the
Yeah.
situation where he doesn't kick out of the Falcon Arrow, and it's just like, hey, Triple H is like that stuff happens. I understand that he's frustrated, but it happens. We move on. We keep going, and really, it's not a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
it's So I
Shit
feel like,
happens.
yeah, I feel like with Damien, it's starting to click that he's getting comfortable in that situation. Again, it just feels like it sucks because the timing is like, again, if you're smart, you're putting all your money on Gunther, but man, it's like Damien's just turning the corner and this can actually be something. Is it too soon? How can we figure this out?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe just give the guy a little bit of slack.
Yeah, I mean, and for the previous question, make note of the fact that Damian Priest had a non-title match on Raw, which is kind of like it hasn't really happened that often. You don't see him
No.
wrestling on Raw that often as World Heavyweight Champion. Again, it's supply and demand. We're not going to overexpose our champion just to put him on TV.
Exactly. They know what they're doing, believe it or not.
Yeah,
So give them some time.
yeah.
A very simple question. Where's Raquel Rodriguez? She came back for Elimination Chamber and then basically vanished. I think she was like dealing with something, wasn't she? Some type of condition, I think.
Yeah, she has a weird not weird, that's insensitive. I'm sorry. She has a skin condition where she has like flare-ups
Yeah.
that kind of look like rashes, and they look painful and they look
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I know that she's tried to fight through it, but it's kind of a situation where it's like kind of almost all over her body, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a comfortable situation to be in. And I kind of feel bad because for all the talk, like, how we're critical because that's what we do here. It feels like Raquel always just wanted to do a good job. you know
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
she always wanted to perform the best of her abilities, and enjoy the adulation and the admiration from the crowd. So when you're in a situation where physically something happens that is out of your control, that doesn't allow you to do those things like wrestle for the WWE, it must be a tough situation. So I don't know. I was gonna look up and see if I could find an update, but I didn't, unfortunately. But I hope everything is good with Raquel, and hopefully she can make her way back to the WWE.
Hopefully, because there's never too many women
No,
on the roster. So
no, definitely not. Just keep them coming because again, they have this crazy ability to find these girls and just turn them into stars that you want to see.
Exactly. So keep them coming.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I saved this question for last, obviously, and it's a fun one.
Okay.
So if we could sit front row for any pay per view in the history of pay per views,
Mm.
which one would it be and why? For Mike, he said it would either be WrestleMania 3 to see Hogan slam Andre, or WrestleMania 30 to see and hear how quiet the building got when Lesnar beat the streak. Oh, God.
Oh, wow.
Whew, that probably wouldn't have been a fun time, but.
Michael, why do you do this to me?
Yeah, that's. Yeah. It took me a little bit to think about it. If you have your answers, I'll let you go first, but.
Oh, I have multiple answers.
Yeah, I got two because
Yeah,
I couldn't pick between them both.
yeah. I would have loved to have been at Money in the Bank 2011 to see
Oh,
CM Punk,
no.
John Cena in Chicago. I would
Yeah.
have loved to have been there. I would have loved to have been at No Way Out when Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar for the WWE
Yeah.
Championship. I probably would have cried there.
Mhm.
And ultimately, I got to go with WrestleMania 40 because I feel like
Yeah. Yeah.
night two of WrestleMania 40, that main event, had literally everything from my early teenage years to now
Hmm.
as a wrestling fan, all packed into one
Yeah.
match and one spectacle.
Yeah.
So to go
It
through,
was crazy.
yeah, I bet. So to go through those emotions, and to see what that's like, to see Cena come out, The Rock come out, and then The Undertaker, and I would have, we probably would have been seated together, and I would
Yeah.
have had a moment where I probably would have passed out.
It would have been like, no, you gotta wake up. The match is still going on.
No, I would have been like, you have to hold me up because
Yeah.
my body can't take this anymore.
Yeah. No, that was just wild too, because it pretty much was like the same sentiment for me, where it was just like, just when you thought it was couldn't get any better, it just kept coming the whole time, that entire match. And it was just, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like it always sounds so cliche to say until you actually experience it, of just like, oh, well, WrestleMania just has like that certain energy to it. It's like, no, I can confirm itself. It has an energy, because it's just like, it almost, you can't help but have that kind of energy when you have 60, 70,000 plus people a night in one general area screaming about the same thing you're screaming about. It's just like, it's indescribable. It's crazy. So to, yeah, just experience that was like wild.
it,
Even from Peanut Heaven, we were enjoying it. But
it must be like addicting because
yeah.
it's like I would feel like as soon as it's over, it's like, all right, well, we got to plan for the next one,
We may or may not be. I can't confirm or deny that. So
you better
we'll save that for
yeah,
later.
you
But
better start putting money away in the piggy bank.
oh, we're planning on it, because I think the stars are just aligning for the fact that at least mom is more inclined to go to a WrestleMania in Vegas than Minnesota.
Yeah,
So
Vegas is her spot.
yeah, that's like her Florida from, or not. It's like her Universal Studios for
Wow.
me. So it's like, yeah. So it'll also be fun to kind of go into Vegas and actually experience things that I couldn't experience when I went before. Because I went when I was like super little, and there's not a lot of like kids things to do in Vegas, but it should be fun. But like I said, we'll talk more about that in a few months. But for me, my two pay-per-views, I kind of picked them for the same reason.
Mm.
And that would be, funny that we mentioned it earlier, Evolution and WrestleMania 35 to see the women's main event. Because both of those instances, I'm sitting there watching these shows going, I never would have thought that this was going to be like possible to even see on a TV, let alone how people were experiencing it in real time, like in the arenas. So it's like, I think just seeing all those, like, at one time, pipe dreams and just like fantasies come to fruition and come to reality was really cool to see. And I would have loved to see to experience firsthand that energy in those buildings those nights, because oh, I wish it would have been so close. If it was closer for Evolution, I would have went. I would have like, I would have found a way to go, but it just obviously wasn't going to happen. But it was just nice to finally see women's wrestling get recognized, because we've talked about it so many times. For the longest time, I was never really into women's wrestling
Right.
because they never really gave me a reason to, because I didn't give a shit about the bra and panties matches. I didn't give a shit about like the mud wrestling or the like pudding wrestling or whatever. I'm just like, this is kind of like stupid because I'm not anything like that, and not many of the women's wrestlers were like me. So like once Paige would come in and once like the four horsewomen came in, I'm just like, this is finally here. Like this is like finally just like vindication of women's wrestling does belong.
Mhm.
And being able to experience both those shows live, especially front row, would have been insane.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, who wouldn't want to be front row witnessing history?
Yeah,
Um,
like so many things happened on both those shows. It's just like it would have. I was very envious of people that got to experience those live.
yeah, yeah, and that's why I like watching old shows from like the 80s and stuff, because my mind instantly goes, well, I was a baby at this time. Look at these
Yeah,
people, their weird clothes and their weird
yeah, right.
hairstyle. Like it transformed you back, and you kind of want to put yourself there and just to feel the vibe. So like again, even going back to this past WrestleMania, like you said, all those people just to be in that sea of humanity,
Yes,
it must have been insane. But yeah,
it's crazy. Like it's one of those two where it's like every time I hear like Gasoline by The Weekend now, I get like the flippies because I'm just like, yeah, it's a good song too.
yeah.
It's like it's catchy, and so now it's just like you go from that, which will most likely be in my Spotify rap this year, to fucking country music theme song I'm gonna have to listen to for SummerSlam.
Oh
Like
boy.
I heard it and it was just like, and remember, and you saw when Triple H was like, "Hey, like Jelly Roll, you want to come? Like you're free August 3rd." I'm like, please don't, please, please don't make me listen to it. I did not pay to go to like a country music concert. I don't want to hear that shit.
That
But
just sounds like the worst time ever.
in Cleveland too, it's
In
just like,
Cleveland.
ugh.
Oh
Like
man.
if it was like Motionless in White, that would have been. I mean, I got a preview of that. That would have been better. But like, ugh, like country music, no, thank you. But
Oh man.
yeah,
It's
I'm
just
good.
yeah, it's just like I feel like in a way, the ultimate goal even for what we do is to like experience that. Like you got to experience that as a fan, but imagine like being asked to attend one of those events, like as a media personnel or something like that. It's
Yeah,
just that's like, to me that's the ultimate goal, because I'll never have whatever amount of money it takes to spend on a WrestleMania weekend or something like that. So like,
yeah,
that's why it's just like a lot of people do this. You see, like I was talking about it before on Twitter, we went from Dave Meltzer being like the only real like kind of wrestling media person to now everybody's a media wrestling person. So it's like a competition to all get there. But that's why we have fun doing this podcast. And that we love talking about wrestling, and we love questions like that of like, what is it like being in that situation?
exactly. I love those fun questions. It's
Yeah,
just it just takes it to a whole new level.
for
But
sure.
and we did it.
All right, we are done. I kind of like these little not necessarily shorter episodes, but they are shorter than what we're accustomed to.
Yeah, they aren't 2.5, 3 hour episodes anymore. So
Yeah, none of those, but we greatly appreciate anybody that participates in the episodes that we record, because I mean, without you guys, literally we wouldn't have a show, because
yeah,
you guys
literally.
you guys make up the format for the show. So without you guys, we'd be nothing. So again, thank you guys. If you're a new listener to the podcast, thank you very much for listening. Obviously, you're found it on whatever platform you choose. But it's available on all the major platforms like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio. It's even on YouTube, where you can get full episodes, highlights of the podcast, and highlights of the live watch along streams that I do throughout the week. It's all available on the internet. Like I said, whatever platform you choose. If you can't find it on your platform of choice, just hit us up on social media. We are available on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at the handle at Ringside Rundown. Again, that's at Ringside Rundown. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Like I said, we're also available on YouTube at Ringside Run Pod is on YouTube, and TikTok. We're even on TikTok.
Yeah.
Crazy. Don't worry, I'm not doing any dances on TikTok or anything
No,
anything like
no,
that. Check us out.
no influencer
Yeah,
content.
none of that influencer crap.
No.
Just wrestling stuff. Check it out, ringside_rundown on TikTok. If you want to get in touch with me personally about professional wrestling, check out my personal Twitter at WrestlingCron, Wrestling CHRON. Shay, where can they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter talking absolute nonsense about a bunch of other things is Shailene Hickson 21.
There you go. Oh, I forgot to mention one of the most important parts. Like I said, I do live watch-alongs for
Oh yeah.
all WWE and AEW programming. So if you want to watch the show with me, ask me questions, talk to me in chat, check me out on Twitch anytime there's a WWE or AEW show, twitch.tv/ringside rundown. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So we're done here. We're going to get the heck out of here. We're going to be back next week with another episode. Make sure you send in a question if you would like to have it answered on the podcast. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter to find out how that's done. So for Shailene Hickson, my name is Erik Vasquez, and we shall talk to you next week, guys.
See you later, guys.